Yeah, hi, it's Craig. Welcome to my podcast. What we're going to be talking about in the next few episodes is, as you can see on the screen, it says Education for All, Bridging the Digital Divide. Now, the theme of these podcasts is going to be how low Earth orbit or LEO satellite technology can help achieve universal education by closing the digital divide. Now, without jumping ahead too much, you might be surprised to learn that 2.6 billion, so roughly one third of the Earth's population, don't have regular access to internet connectivity or don't have internet connectivity. There's a variety of reasons for this, which we'll be looking at in this podcast, and what we can do about it. I did a TEDx talk on this in 2023, and this is a continuation from that. The actual implementation, which I want to go on to, is a bit frustratingly slow, but the technology, because this idea is based on a new technology, is starting to be rolled out. Now, why am I doing this? Well, I don't think it's right that some parts of the world, depending where you're born, you get access to education and opportunities. Other people born in other parts of the world don't. They could just end up being in child marriage, child slavery, and just have a rubbish life. Well, how is that right? It doesn't necessarily need to cost a lot to fix, which we'll be coming on to. There are ways of doing this. This is actually an ambition of the United Nations to provide education for all under their Sustainable Development Goal 4, so SDG 4, if you ever hear of that. That is an ambition, a stated aim of the United Nations, which was they announced this in 2015 with a target date of 2030. Now we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at what technology we can use to help bridge that divide. Now there's some good initiatives already, such as Project Giga, which is not only finding out how many schools there are, because we don't actually know that, so they're using satellite imagery and various other techniques to discover this, but they are then aiming to provide internet to all schools in the world. And schools, for those of us living in prosperous countries such as Europe, prosperous areas such as Europe and the United States, etc., we take internet for granted. We take electricity and water for granted, but in some places this isn't, unfortunately, people's daily reality. So, like I say, Project Giga is looking to provide internet to every school. Now, where I'm coming in here is that there are millions of children and young people that don't have a school to attend. It could be for various reasons, which we'll look at. I'm just realising I'm ad-libbing this at the moment, and I'm in danger, as I typically do, of going off on a tangent and not sticking to the script. Do I need a script? I'm going to try and stick to a script with this podcast, otherwise we'll be all over the place. But basically, all the podcast is about connecting the unconnected people, the unconnected children, giving them an opportunity and an education, and those specifically focusing on those that don't have a school to attend. Okay, let's just give you an overview of what the podcast series is going to look at. So, like I say, the series is looking at education for all, bridging the digital divide, and we're looking at how low Earth orbit or LEO satellite technology can help achieve universal education by closing the digital divide. Now, episodes. So, the first episode 1, is going to be entitled The Invisible. Start again. Episode 1. The title of episode 1 is The Invisible Divide. Who's Left Behind? In that episode, we're going to define the digital divide and give some examples, share real-world statistics, and looking at what would actually your life be like if you didn't have the internet today. So putting ourselves in the shoes of this 2.6 billion people, and the 2.6 billion, by the way, is a figure which was published last year in 2024 by the ITU. The ITU being the International Telecommunications Union, which is part of the United Nations responsible for worldwide telecommunications. So that's episode 1, The Invisible Divide and Who's Left Behind. Episode 2 will be entitled The Dream of Universal Education. In episode 2, we will introduce, I will introduce the UN SDG 4, Sustainable Development Goal 4. We'll also look at why universal education matters in terms of opportunity, equality, and freedom. And finally, in episode 2, we will look at the gap between goals and reality. So as I said, we had the United Nations set goals, but what is the reality? Moving on to episode 3, the title and the theme of episode 3 will be Satellites to the Rescue, Meet Leo. And in episode 3 we will look at what is a low Earth orbit satellite, how low Earth orbit satellite technology is different from old satellites, and we will actually be looking into a subgenre, that's not right, sub-technology of low Earth orbit satellites, which is D2D, which is direct to device, which is an exciting new technology which can beam satellite signals straight to a mobile phone, a standard mobile phone. And finally, so just to recap episode 3, because I'm going off in one of my tangents again. So we'll be looking at what is a low Earth orbit satellite, how low Earth orbit satellites or LEO technology is different from old satellite technology such as GEO, which stands for geosynchronous, and how LEO can provide internet even in the remotest places. So episode 4 then will be entitled Connecting Classrooms Without Walls, how LEO plus low-cost devices can create community classrooms. It will also look at solar power, refurbished tech, and open source software and how this can help. Finally, episode 4 will look at what a school, in inverted commas, could look like in a remote village, how this technology could work, providing education and empowering people where there is no school. Right, now we move on to episode 5. Now episode 5 is entitled Why It Matters. I've just remembered I'm being videoed. Those of you listening to the podcast will think, what's he talking about? Well, I'm videoing myself while I'm recording this, so I'm going to take the audio off and put it onto the video. And I've forgotten for a minute. I was reading my plan off my computer screen. I hope I haven't done anything embarrassing. Anyhow, right, back to episode 5. So, why it matters. Episode 5 is entitled Why It Matters, Economic and Cultural Impact. Now, we're going to look at how education can boost local economies, how global markets could grow, cultural exchange and opportunity for new ideas. So these are things we're going to look at in episode 5, which is why it matters in terms of economic and cultural impact. So it's not just education, this revolution, we could call it, can provide. There are also, if you're not interested in education, stick with this podcast, because you're going to find out how we can economically empower the world. Now, whatever your views on migration or the world economy, it's going to have benefits, and I'll go into why. Right. Episode 6 then. What can you do? What small actions can individuals take and help to bring this idea into reality. How can we use the technology which I'm going to talk about? How can we help provide it and empower communities worldwide? We'll be looking at that. We'll also I'll also be looking into the investment and financial side of it, and how from an economic point of view and a business point of view can we get involved, how we can get investment, how we can get this thing off the ground. And finally, in episode 6, we're looking at a vision for the future, a world where no child is invisible, where everyone gets a chance. I mean, whether you do anything with this chance, that's up to you. Same with England, where I am at the moment. You get an education, you might say, this is rubbish. You see all these people on the internet, sometimes they made quite a lot of money doing the business thing. They go, education's rubbish, forget it, it's all part of the matrix, whatever the heck that is. Right, yeah, but look at the alternatives. You're born and you end up working in a mine or something, or getting married off at a young age. They totally gloss over this. So whether you go to school and think, well, I didn't like it, I didn't learn much, the fact you're there, it's providing you with a chance which might be useful to learn the basic skills, even reading and writing and maths. Now, as I said, there's Project Giga, which is trying to provide internet to every school, and this idea that I'm going to be looking at is for those that don't have a school. So it's going to be, you call it a school in the sky if you like, because it's going to use radio waves coming from satellites, connect you with standard mobile phones without giving the whole podcast away, and this will provide online learning to everyone. And I'll explain how they're going to get the equipment, which is probably what some of you are thinking. Right, okay, so I've gone through the just to recap very quickly, because you're thinking, Craig, is he ever going to finish talking? He's waffling on, going off on a tangent. Yeah, it's quite normal for me. Right, so I'll just read through the episodes and the titles of the episodes. I won't bother going back through it all again. So you're going to have episode 1, The Invisible Divide, Who's Left Behind? That's the title. Episode 2, the title, The Dream of Universal Education. Episode 3, Satellites to the Rescue, Meet Leo. Episode 4, Connecting Classrooms Without Walls. Episode 5, Why It Matters, Economic and Cultural Impact. Episode 6, What Can You Do? So that is what this podcast is going to be about, and I would love it if you could join me to listen to it. It is on Spotify. It will be on Spotify very shortly once I've recorded the episodes. I'm obviously recording this introduction to it at the moment, and I will be putting the rest of it on shortly. Okay, thanks for listening. Hope you find the podcast useful, and please get in touch. You can find me, LinkedIn is probably a good place to find me. Craig Miles. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the best way to find me on LinkedIn. You'll find me easy enough. Yeah, LinkedIn will be a good one. You can sort of connect with me there if you want to discuss anything you find in the podcast, and I hope you do. I encourage you to. Right, okay, I'll stop waffling now and end this podcast. Right, cheers, thank you, bye.